folks, Scott here with my 10 cards, 1 kit video featuring the Love from Lizi September 2018 Super Card Kit. This September, Love from Lizi celebrated a 2nd birthday. So we got treated to this Super Card Kit, this Happy Haunting card kit that features products manufactured exclusively for Love from Lizi. So let's get into it. This is the Happy Haunting card kit. As usual, I do take the card stocks provided in the kit and make card bases out of them. I do find that sometimes the colors of the card base will inspire a card from me. Now, one of my favorite things about the Love from Lizi kits is that she almost always surprises us with unique ingredients and or products that I've never seen or used before. This month was no exception in that we got this tub of Brusho powdered watercolors in black. So I wanted to play with this first. I dug out my watercolor paper. This is my standard Strathmore 400 series 140-pound cold press watercolor paper. Very good watercolor paper. I like it. It's a little smoother on one side, a little more textured on the other. I grabbed a piece of this, taped it down to a board, watered the whole surface down, and started dusting my Brushos over the top. Well, that was amazing. There are so many colors in this Brusho pigment that it's not just black. I added water and then added more Brusho powder and then spritzed some more water on it and added some more Brusho powder. I kind of let the powder do its own thing. I really like this. I'm going to have to rethink my whole coloring galaxy processes now that I have this black Brusho powder with me. So this watercolor Brusho background is what inspired my first card for the month. On a white card base. Now I should say that when Lizi gives us that nice, smooth, Copic-friendly white cardstock, I do squirrel that away to use for alcohol marker coloring, and I just substitute a regular sheet of 110-pound white cardstock from my stash. So this is my white cardstock. So card number 1, we get Witch Please. This is that background of Brusho on watercolor paper. I did go through and spatter that background with some of my permanent white gouache watercolor. This works really great for stars. This added just the right touch to that Brusho background and made it look even more like a galaxy. Now I cut that watercolor paper with a stitched rectangle die, and then I matted that on a piece of the dusty pink specialty cardstock. I did cut this little moon with one of my circle dies. This is a plain old Doris circle die, and I cut that out of the blush specialty cardstock. I'm using the ephemera witch here. This is the ephemera piece and the Witch Please sentiment from the Decoupage sheet. Now I glued the circle right down to the card front and then attached the ephemera witch with foam tape. Some nice dimension to her there. I did add some of the Wisteria Purple Nouveau drops on her and around the moon. Witch Please, that's a great pun. I have to admit that all of these goulettes are pretty cute. Great big eyes. And because of that, I thought it would be good to put some glossy accents on her eyes. There you can see them. It really brings her eyes to life and kind of almost magnifies them if you can possibly make them bigger. Of course, I couldn't leave the Witch Please pun alone and added a little pun of my own on the inside. So on the outside, we've got Witch Please, and on the inside, Spell Yeah. I printed this Spell Yeah on a writing surface using my Silhouette software and my printer. This is in the Blackjack font. I tried to pick fonts that were reminiscent of the scripty font in the card kit. I've got a couple of fonts I use. We'll talk about that more. Witch Please, Spell Yeah. There's card number 1 using a Brusho black background. Now that I did some free-for-all, let the Brushos do what they want to do background, I thought I would try to see what kind of control I could exert over that Brusho powder. You know me, I'm a big old control freak and just a little bit anal retentive. So this is the piece I came up. I figured a moon would be great for Halloween cards and wanted to see if I could create a moon. Now this moon is just using the Brusho powders and some of my permanent white paint. Notice the little Tycho crater on the bottom right over there. I love this. I think it came out really, really good. And considering it's just the Brusho powder and a little bit of white watercolor, I think there's so many colors, and I really am pleased with this moon. For our second card here, on a black card base, we get Happy Halloween. Again, I used my white watercolors and spattered some stars right on the card base, right on that black card base. I did die cut that moon with one of my circle dies and attach that directly to the card base. There's one stripe on that striped pattern paper that's very, very thin, so I cut that stripe off and made a couple of darts and folds on it to make a little twig for my owl to hang out on. I did add the owl and the twig with some foam tape to the front of this card, and I did go in and add glossy accents to the eyes of the owl again. I think that's really nice. The owl's eyes just glow. Happy Halloween. Okay, that's a great pun, especially when you've got a great owl like this. I printed that again using the Blackjack font. I really like using this white on black printing for my sentiments. It really looks like white embossing on these sentiments. Happy Halloween. I thought this was the perfect opportunity to add the trick or treat stamp on the inside writing surface. This is card number 2. Happy Halloween. Beware, we are just getting started with the puns this month. So our stencil this month was this great curly Q spiderweb stencil that I really liked, and I thought it would be great fun to do some reverse stenciling with this, which basically just means using the stencil as a stamp. So I experimented a bit with some black cardstock, and these are what I came up with. If you're following the Love from Lizi Facebook page, I posted this picture before. I did find that the cut edges of the stencil are slightly higher or maybe thicker than the main body of the stencil. So if you use ink on the stencil and just press it on some cardstock, chances are you're only going to get outlines and not a solid surface. You need to add water to the ink in order to transfer that ink onto a solid card surface. Here's my examples here. This is stamped with Unicorn White, Hero Arts Unicorn White ink, and then I used my Stardust Glaze pen to fill in the center lines. This one, again, you can see those little white lines on the edges. That's the stamp using the stencil, and then I just used a white gel pen to fill that in. Now I was thinking it'd be great to be able to emboss this stencil, so what I did for that is I used my Versamark ink on the stencil, and then I put that on the cardstock and ran it through my die cutting machine with the embossing pad. So it really pressed that Versamark ink really nicely into the cardstock. This is embossed with the Golden Crown embossing powder from Love from Lizi. Really nice effect there. And this is embossed with the Silver Dollar Love from Lizi embossing powder. Really, really nice. I really like running that stencil through my die cutting machine with the embossing pad. It really presses that ink into the cardstock really kind of perfectly. Really, really nice. Now, I also took some time to put together all of the decoupage goulettes. And we've got 4 decoupage goulettes. And so while I was brainstorming this set, I put my goulettes together. I tell you, some of the pieces of these decoupage pieces are so skinny. I tell you, I was cutting foam pieces down to little slivers to get them to fit behind these goulette's arms and legs, but I persevered and managed to get all 4 of these goulettes put together using all of the decoupage pieces. Now, these are my favorite foam dots to use with decoupage. They're very thin. They're 1/16 inch thick. I'll have a link to these on my website if you'd like to check that out, CardCutups.com. These are my favorite with decoupage pieces. So let's take one of those spiderweb stencils and one of those goulette decoupage pieces and use it on our 3rd card here. This is on the Posy card base, and we've got, if you got it, want it. I really like this. I think my favorite stencil stamping was the white stencil that I sprayed with lots of water, pressed it into the paper, and got a really nice variated color throughout that whole stencil. I thought that worked great for a background here. I trimmed that stencil down to size. Now, it is a 6x6 stencil, but it has a frame around it, so it doesn't quite cover a whole 5.5 inch card. So this is about as much coverage as I could get. I trimmed out the top and bottom edges with some thin strips of those lilac mirror peel-offs. I thought that pairing our goulette with the little book and the cauldron together would be great fun, give us some context for the book she's reading. Maybe it's a book of spells, maybe it's a recipe book. I did take the time to make a little shaker card out of the inside of the cauldron. It doesn't move much because it's packed really tight in there, but I did make a little shaker card, used all the small sequins from the sequin mix inside the cauldron. I think that looks like lots of fun, and it gives a lot of shine. I stamped the skulls from the stamp set, 2 big ones and 1 small one, and die cut the big ones out, fussy cut the small one out, mounted them to this card base with more foam tape, added some more pink sequins. Actually, I think those are the lilac sequins going up amongst those, so those are kind of like all bubbles coming out of the cauldron. If you got it, haunt it. I did this again in the blackjack font. I really enjoy that white print on a black background. And with the silhouette, you can create it just to the size you want and cut it out. You know it's going to be square. You know it's going to be perfect. I added that sentiment to this card base with some foam tape. And inside we do have Happy Halloween, the stamp from the set on that lovely Posy card base. That's really a nice, almost a purpley pink. If you got it, haunt it. And this little goulette is definitely haunting it. So let's dig into some of that pattern paper. We got a great pack of 12 sheets of pattern paper, a Love from Lizi Happy Haunting Halloween pad. I think it's her first Love from Lizi pattern paper pad. I really liked that striped pattern paper. I thought it really kind of looked like birch trees. So for our next card here, this is the lilac card base. Here we go. I'm batty for you. I considered taking that striped pattern paper and just cutting all the stripes off of it. And finally, I thought it might be a really interesting effect to cut a little moon out from behind the trees and kind of make this a reverse nighttime. I like this card quite a bit. This is the Decoupage goulette, the little bat goulette. In the decoupage, I paired her up with the ephemera bat. They're kind of holding hands. Looks like they're dancing through the forest. I simply took one of my circle dies and traced a circle on that background paper and then used my craft knife to cut that moon shape out while leaving the trees intact. I then die cut that piece with one of my stitched rectangle dies and added that to a black mat of the black specialty cardstock. I did, of course, cut out the center of that black mat so the lilac card base would show through. I added that whole background piece to the card front with foam tape for a little dimension through the trees back to the purple moon. I did take some of that chevron pattern paper and I fussy cut the edge of that and added it to the bottom of this background to kind of suggest the ground. I wanted the little goulette to be standing on something, not just floating in the air. I cut that to size also with the stitched rectangle die, so you have that nice stitched line all the way around the background here. I'm Batty for You is printed using my Silhouette software and my printer, and this is the Ballerina script font. Now, I thought this font was really very close to the font in the stamps and decorations of this kit, but the lowercase w had this odd kind of extra curly Q to it. So any sentiment that had a W in it, I went with the Blackjack font. Any sentiment that didn't have W's, I used the Ballerina script font. Of course, links to these fonts will be on my website at CardCutups.com. I did, of course, add glossy accents to the eyes on our little goulette here again. I think that's really a nice touch on these girls that have their eyes open. Really nice shine and dimension that it adds to their great big eyes. I'm Batty for You. These guys are dancing away in the forest. On the inside, of course, we've got a Happy Halloween with the Halloween stamp from the stamp set. I'm so happy that Lizi included that Happy Halloween stamp. I'm Batty for You. That's using some of the great pattern paper from the card kit, an ephemera piece, and one of the Decoupage goulettes. Now, we also got some terrific wood veneer die cut pieces included in our kit this month that were very interesting. They were very well detailed, nicely sized, and they were darker than most of the veneer pieces that you see nowadays. I really like that. I was eager to use the large skull on this card and pair it up with some of that skull pattern paper in our pattern paper pad. On the dark gray cardstock, I ain't got nobody. I couldn't resist. This is one of my favorite puns this month. So much fun. Now, I took those black and white skull papers from the pattern paper pad, and I noticed that they were the exact same pattern on two different colors, black and white. So I stacked those on top of each other and cut a bunch of strips from that, knowing that I could match the pattern up going across, and I created this really fun black and white striped pattern paper in the back. Once I had attached all of these strips of pattern paper back together, I trimmed those out with a stitched rectangle die. I did mount those to a piece of the blush specialty cardstock and glued those down to my dark gray card base. I also cut a little mat for the skull using that same blush specialty paper, and then printed up this sentiment. I ain't got nobody. Oh, that tickles me so much. This, of course, was printed in my favorite Brady Bunch remastered font. A link to that will be on my website at CardCutups.com. Anyway, so I put this all together, and I thought it was a little flat. I was looking for something special that I could add to this card, and I tried taking a gel pen and coloring in the eyes on that other little wooden veneer die cut, but they're very textured at the bottom, and I had a kind of a hard time, and it still just looks a little flat. There's just not enough going on there. But I remembered I had some black Nuvo drops from a couple of months ago with our Love from Lizi kits. Look at his eyes. I love that. I added those black dots in the middle of his eye sockets. It gives him a ton of character. He almost looks a little irritated here. I think I'd be irritated if I lost my body too. I ain't got no body, and happy Halloween on the inside. I ain't got nobody. So I still had lots of goulettes to use, and I had this one witch sentiment that I was dying to use, and I couldn't find any pattern paper that I thought was really indicative of a flying witch. So I remember last year with the Love from Lizi's special edition Thanksgiving kit, I created this little swirling wind file for my silhouette portrait that would sketch this file on cardstock. I love the fact that my silhouette will not only cut out images, but it will also sketch images with any pen that will fit in the pen holder. So again, on the dark gray card base, now we've got life's a witch, and then you fly. There's a double pun for you folks. I used my silhouette to draw that little stitched windy sky on the graphite specialty cardstock. Used one of my gel pens, a white gel pen, to sketch that on that. I really like that. It came out really, really nice. I used my largest stitched rectangle die to cut that piece out. That is the size of an A2 card, so it fit perfectly on my gray cardstock. I added this witch decoupage piece with foam tape to the front of the card. Again, I did add great big eyes on her using some glossy accents to highlight those eyes. Works really nicely. Life's a witch, and then you fly. That again is in the blackjack font. There's that W there, so I can't use the ballerina font. I sized that so it would fit one of my Spellbinder's deco rectangle dies. Cut that out with the deco rectangle die, cut out a couple more layers, glued those all together, added that to the card front with a little bit of foam tape behind it. A few sequins on the card front. Life's a witch, and then you fly. And of course, on the inside, we've got a happy Halloween. So I used my silhouette to draw a background on this one. I thought I'd use my silhouette to cut something out for my next card. On a white card base, we've got 333. Wait for it. I used my silhouette to cut the 333 out of one of the pieces of pattern paper. This is that great like terrazzo tile pattern paper in different colors. Used my silhouette to cut those threes out. That is the impact font. I also cut 3 threes out of some scrap black cardstock and glued those together for a little drop shadow on the 333, and then glued those right to my card front. This is my little ephemera devil goulette that I added to the card front using foam tape. I was looking for a little pop of color. I tried some of the Nuvo drops on the side. Those actually have just the faintest hint of purple to them. They seem a little bit more purple silver to me. Anyway, I stamped the bow from the stamp set and used the die to cut it out. I colored it with my Zig Clean Color markers. I cut it out with the die from the set, and I didn't care for the white outline. I didn't think it worked very good to put it on top of this image. So I went ahead and fussy cut it right down to the stamp lines and added that to our little Devil Goulette's hair. I've got a little bit of Spectrum Noir sparkle pen gloss on that bow, and again I used my Stardust glitter pen to color up that skeleton skull on that bow. Really fun. That's a nice pop of color here. 333, what in the world are we talking about here? You have to open the card to get I'm only half evil. Now, there's no W's in this sentiment, so I was able to use the ballerina font for this sentiment. I just printed that on an inside writing surface, cut that with a stitched rectangle die, and added it to the inside of the card. I really like the graphic nature of this card. I think she looks really nice and goes really well with that 333. I'm only half evil. Now, I hadn't used that spooky stamp from the stamp set yet. It was quite a large stamp, and so I thought it might make a really good background for a card here. So I go to the black card base again, and we get, I'm just here for the booze. Again, I couldn't resist. When I saw the little bottles included in the stamp set, I knew this card was in my future. On the black card base, I stamped that spooky stamp with Versamark ink and embossed that with some clear embossing powder. It really makes for a nice background on this card. I took the lilac mirror peel-offs and did my little partial frames, a double partial frame on the top left and bottom right. I really like that. It adds some definition without boxing everything in. I took that great ghost ephemera piece and stamped 2 of the bottles from the stamp set, colored those with my Zig Clean Color Real brush markers, die cut them out with the included die, glued those to the 2 arms of our ghost, and here we've got, I'm just here for the booze. I went back, of course, to my Brady Bunch remastered font for this sentiment, printed that up using my Silhouette software and my printer, trimmed that down, added that to the card base with some foam squares. It's on a little bit of an angle. I think everybody's a little drunk at this party. I'm just here for the booze. And of course, on the inside, Happy Halloween. Again, we get another great little pop of color. I love those green little booze poison bottles on this. I'm just here for the booze. So you know I like to try and use all of the stamps in a stamp set. We've got the bottles, we've got the bow, we've got the skulls, we've got all of the sentiments used now, but I haven't used the 3 goulettes. So this time, it's going to be all about the goulettes. This, again, is on the Posy card base, and this is what we get. You'll have to wait for it. I took that pink piece of that terrazzo pattern paper and cut a slit of that, added that to that off pink cobweb pattern paper, and then took the lilac mirror peel-offs and created like a floor tiles in a little bit of a perspective. This is my little disco floor, I like to call it. I, of course, stamped my girls. All of my stamping this month is done with VersaFine Onyx Black ink. I don't think I used any other ink except for the stencil. I colored these all with my Zig Clean Color Real brush markers. Die cut them out with the included dies, then arranged them on the front of this card. I did bring in that nice skull from the ephemera piece to give our little bat goulette something to stand on so she wasn't totally lost in the background. She's appreciably smaller than the other 2 girls, but I like all 3 of these girls on one card. They certainly fill up the front. A little glitter here and there. There's some Stickles red glitter on our little devil goulette. The wings and earpieces of our bat goulette have a little sparkle from the Spectrum Noir. There's again that sparkle on the skull and on the book, and a little sparkle on the edge of our green girl here too. Great fun. These are really pretty. Oh, it was so nice to get some bright poppy colors in this kit. So what is this one all about? I've kind of been hinting at it all through this whole video with my nickname for these girls as goulettes. And yes, you're right. Ghouls just want to have fun. This is probably my second favorite pun. Ghouls just want to have fun. Again, we have a W in that sentiment, so I had to go to the blackjack font. I really enjoy this. These girls look like they are having a great time. Ghouls just want to have fun. So I really, really liked that pumpkin pie embossed spider web that I created when I was experimenting with the stencil. That pumpkin pie embossing powder is from Love from Lizi. That was included with the Love from Lizi October 2017 card kit, the Halloween kit from Love from Lizi last year. And I was digging through my leftovers of that kit and found some orange specialty glimmer cardstock. So for my final card this month, this is on the lilac card base, and we've got an interactive card for everybody. Creepin' it real. Creepin' it real. This is, of course, that pumpkin pie embossed spider web on black cardstock. I cut that down with a stitched rectangle die and matted that on that burnt orange specialty cardstock from the October kit last year. It matched perfectly with that embossing powder. I grabbed that spider from the veneers. I really like this spider. I actually added some color to her with some alcohol markers on the bow, and then used my glaze pens to add a little color in her eyes. I used my white gel pens to color the bottom line of her eyes. That really makes those eyes pop. Again, that Stardust glitter pen on the skull. Nice color on that. Even a little drop of the red glaze pen on her mouth. I just took a Embossed pen and drew a line on some black cardstock, embossed that with the pumpkin pie, fussy cut that out for my web that the spider swings on, and then attached everything. This is exactly the same as the Swinging Girl card I did a couple months ago. I have a how-to on my YouTube channel. The big difference here is instead of trying to make the card so skinny and thin and only using cardstock as a spacer between the card front and the card base, since we have a big old chunky wood veneer piece on the top, I decided that I could afford to use foam tape as the spacer between the card front and the card base. It makes these cards very, very easy. You've got plenty of room for your pull tab, plenty of room for your mechanism. Creepin' it real. Now, I didn't want to cover up any of this really groovy cobweb with my sentiment, so while I was thinking about where to place the sentiment, I figured out, well, let's put it behind the spider and let the spider reveal the sentiment as she swings back and forth. This is using the Taco Modern font. I really liked that and felt like it was kind of spidery with the extra lines and stuff. Creepin' it real. I then went ahead and printed that on some photo paper for that great shine. I wanted that big shine on that. I created that sentiment so it would fit my Doris banner die. I cut that out of the photo paper and then trimmed that with some thin peel-offs in the lilac mirror. That set off that sentiment perfectly. There's a lot of glitter in that pumpkin pie embossing powder, some nice shine on our spider, and yes, this little girl spider is creepin' it real. Creepin' it real. Of course, on the inside, it does say Happy Halloween. I do have one little bone to pick here. A spider actually has 8 legs. These are only 6-legged spiders, so she's actually just some kind of a furry bug. Maybe she's stuck in a spider web. Okay, that's getting really nitpicky. I do love this card a lot, and I really like the interactive nature of this. I think it's great fun seeing our little spider creeping across her web and back again. And she is definitely creeping it real. So that's my 10 cards from the Love from Lizi September 2018 Super Card Kit. Happy haunting. I'm really pleased with these cards. I had a great time putting these all together. As usual, I have tons of leftovers. I do have one Decoupage goulette still to use. I have a few assorted pieces of these specialty cardstocks. I only have 5 complete sheets of that pattern paper. So that means I actually used 7 different pattern papers on these cards. I did manage to use every stamp in this stamp set, every single one. I love the fact that we have dies that match those stamps. Good dies, they matched up very nicely. I have lots of ephemera left. I have a good amount of those wood veneer die cuts. I was working in the office this last week, and I kept getting hints of what smelled like campfire. I was like, is somebody burning trash outside? What's going on? It was so prevalent over the weekend that I started to worry that I was having a stroke or something. But then it turns out that it's these die cuts. If you sniff your die cuts, especially all together, oh, it smells like a campfire. Of course, I have that beautiful lilac mirror peel-offs. I also have that great stencil will find a loving home in my stash, the Wisteria Purple Nouveau drops. I used some of the sequin mix, but I didn't use much of it at all, considering we got a full pack. So I've got tons of those left. The only thing I didn't get to in this card kit was the ribbon. I think I was so enamored with this little spool that they came on that I just couldn't bring myself to peel them off. Now, even though every one of these cards has some big eyelashes on it somewhere, I really think that taken as a group, this card set actually speaks more to Halloween than it does to girlies. I was trying to bring just a little bit of male perspective to this kit, let's call it that. I really enjoyed all of the puns this month. I hope you guys did too. Halloween is such an easy time of year to throw those puns around. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me here today. I hope I've been able to provide you with a couple of grins, maybe a giggle, and some inspiration to use with your Love from Lizi kit. Please like me, list me, pin me, post me, share me with all of your friends. Don't run with scissors. And by all means, happy crafting. If you'd like more detailed information, better pictures, and product links, please check out my website at CardCutups.com.